Losing the title and regaining the title in the same weight class is, I think, a feat that a lot of fans don't give enough credit to.
Mm.
Like, to lose the title and then regain it is so hard.
All right, welcome to another episode of Two Fight Fans. We talk about all things in combat sports. I'm one fight fan, disappointed, a sad, just miserable fight fan.
Just with no name. Well,
Oh,
here's the thing.
yeah. I'm just, my name is disappointed now.
Disappointed. It was a good weekend for fights, man. There was some good shit this weekend. I'm an
That's true.
excited fight fan, Stuart.
Okay, let me rephrase this. I thought I was hopeful, and maybe I bought into it too much. That 2025 was going to be better than 2024, and it
Mm-hmm.
turns out we just fucking picked off where we left off for 2024. In that MMA is still kind of like, what the fuck am I getting? And what is this majority slop shit? And boxing is pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
so where do you want to start today?
Well, I think the thing I want to know most of all is let's cover off on the UFC quickly. And primarily, we just got to cover that main event. Collin,
Yeah.
what went wrong for Israel Adesanya in that main event?
I've only I only watched it once, the whole fight from start to finish, because I couldn't bring myself to watch the whole thing again. But I did watch the ending sequence a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell, and I don't know if this is my own bias coming in, but you know how we said, like Izzy might be taking over like the reins, the throne of Anderson Silva, being like a dynamic, exciting, kind of flashy fighter, like back when he was like younger, like in like
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2 years ago. That's kind of what we thought. And I bet essentially also like when he conquered his demons and fighting Alex Pereira and coming back with that emphatic like highlight reel KO. We thought, okay, like the new king is here. And very much like Anderson Silva, when he started to lose, the losses piled up quickly and not like and in some weird and bizarre way. For Anderson Silva, a lot of them were just kind of like it looked like he just didn't care and he would lose in like some random like he just didn't really try like fashion. But also
Mm-hmm.
some of it was like he just didn't have the sharpness, the speed, the eye that made him so dynamic and so exciting to watch. And seeing Izzy now lose to Strickland, lose to DDP, lose to Imavov in all of these three different ways, it really makes me think like, okay, has he like has age caught up to his skill or his dynamic already? Which, grant, he is 35, 36 or whatever, which, is at that age where that starts to happen, especially for
Yeah.
kind of skilled technical fighters like this, which is very
Mm-hmm.
possible. You know, is his training like not as serious or not as like is something changed in the way he approaches fights and the fight game itself? Does he just not care anymore? Like, I can't tell what it is, where he's at with all of this right now. But it does. I mean, I said it, like Adesanya needs to win in an emphatic way to get his name back in the middleweight picture. And a second round TKO loss to Imavov,
Not
like
great, Bob.
I, I wouldn't be surprised if it drops him like in like 10 to 15 rankings or even out of rankings from that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, it's just I've been dwelling in my own like I've been having a pity party for myself and I didn't even fucking fight. Like, god damn.
Yeah. Um, do you think you should retire after this?
I think he needs to ask himself, like, what does he want from fighting?
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, he could still fight and still take various fights, get paydays here and there, but like, what are you fighting for right now? Are you kind of in that back half like Anderson Silva, where he's just like, yeah, I'll take whatever fight. Sure, I'll get paid. Okay. And just kind of
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
that where he's at with it, or is he fighting for something? Because I kind of felt like in the past he was fighting for something more. He wanted his name known. He wanted like not just legacy fights that people have been throwing around that term, but like he wanted to establish himself as one of the greatest of all time fighters.
mhm. Well, regardless of what happens, he still is probably the first or second best middleweight of all time. Um, I mean, what is he still fighting for? I think he's on a contract of like 600K guaranteed. Like, that's nothing to sniff at. I'd do unspeakable things for $600,000. So like, it's not terrible. Um, the kind of question is like you said, he lost a unanimous decision over 5 rounds to Son Strickland. He was then finished in 4 rounds against DDP, and now finished in 2 rounds to Imavov. It does feel like we're trending in a direction where he can take a huge step down in competition and maybe rack up some wins and some nice wins. But kind of like what is the point, right? Like we want to see I'm gonna date myself, but like Jason Giambi or Mark McGuire
God
crushing
damn.
home runs in the MLB rather than like playing T-ball, right? We want to see Terrell Owens and fucking Sherman or Sherman Williams? Who am I thinking of now? Who the fuck is
Who
let's say
are
Marshall Lynch. Fuck it. I mixed up a painting brand and a football player in my brain. We'll say Marshall Lynch. We'll say Terrell Owens. Right? Like we want to see them playing in the NFL. We want to see them in like arena football or fucking like pickup league flag football. We want to see the highest end athletes compete in the highest end division at the highest level. So he could fight like share a bullet. He could fight, bottom of the top 15 people. But like, is that really the Izzy experience we want overall? Maybe what he wants to collect some like easy paychecks. But I think it kind of is showing that in the top end of this division, every result he's had for the last 3 fights is kind of just consistently he's been
gotten
finished
worse?
faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's try to identify the 2 or 3 big things that have led to him getting worse so that we've like recognized as him getting worse. You pointed out like what does he want out of fighting? He doesn't seem as like angry or upset. He does seem financially stable. He does seem like he's content with his career. So
Mhm.
it could be a little, right? Like you're not full of piss and vinegar anymore. You're not trying to prove something to yourself. You've climbed the mountaintop. You kind of you're when shit gets rough in a fight, you don't have that last little bit of like oomph to be like I have to fight out of this position. Or in preparation, right? You might prepare really well, but you don't have that kind of like that real chip on your shoulder as you're preparing for a competition. That might be a case. You also talked about like him slowing down. It does definitely look like his reaction speed has gone down compared to prime Izzy. Like that was one thing I noticed. He did not look as fast as he looked, I guess, in the first Pereira fight, right? He just looked a little bit slower. The other thing is Izzy in his other fights would never really change stance stationarily, right? And the finishing sequence of this is he gets poked in the eye, he throws a kick, and then they're kind of standing in front of each other. They're not really bouncing, they're not really circling. And Izzy very slowly changes his stance. He brings his lead foot back to his rear foot, and then it brings his rear foot forward. And that's right when Imavov cracks him. He sees that stance change coming and goes, now's my time, and throws that combination. And Izzy is totally out of position to be able to defend that with his typical movement, which is athletically dynamic trunk movement, because his feet are still in motion to reset into his stance. And that just struck me as like, Izzy doesn't usually make tactical mistakes like that in the past. And when he does, he was so athletically dynamic, almost like Roy Jones Jr., where he could get away with it. And without that to insulate him, when he does make those mistakes, it's too costly for him overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that does make a lot of sense. I mean, so it's a kind of combination of those two things. Like, what's the motivation for fighting and age catching up? Age, as you said before, father time wins against all,
Yeah.
and in a brutal sport like fighting, You know, I mean, these 3 losses that he's had have been what, a year and a half apart.
Yeah.
You know, because he
Well,
lost to Sean Strickland at the end of 2023, so September 10th, 2023. So yeah, a year and a half now, and that's a long time. You know,
Yeah.
that's a long time to go through that, and I don't know, man.
And middleweight seems like the division of like precipitous declines. Anderson Silva, after losing to Weidman,
Yeah,
rarely got a win again. Weidman, after losing to Rockhold, only won once and just kept getting routinely beaten. Luke Rockhold, I mean, was in BKFC recently getting his teeth punched in by Mike Perry because he never got a win after beating Chris Weidman. It just it is this division of precipitous decline, where you can reach the top and then immediately just fall off so
Yeah.
hard. Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
think-
about that as well. Like in comparison to other sports, like combat sports as a whole, MMA, boxing, like it is so unforgiving. Like
Yeah.
in other sports, you could have a bad season, but you could bounce back from that.
Mhm.
You have a bad string of fights here. Not only could you be cut from your organization, but it's like, I mean, how do you come back? You know,
Yeah.
like it's tough. I mean, I was looking at this. Tom Brady is arguably the greatest, you know, quarterback and football player
Fuck
ever.
yeah.
You know, I listen. I don't like to admit it, but
No,
you
I
can't
get it.
deny.
On paper, yeah.
But I also didn't realize this. He went 10 years between his 3rd and 4th Super Bowl.
Mhm.
Like, first of all, just having a 10-year steady career is pretty impressive, you know?
Yeah, I mean, freakish.
But to go from your 3rd Super Bowl win to your 4th and then win many more after that, and there's a 10-year gap between, like, how?
Yeah, it's
you know.
undoable in combat sports.
Yeah, exactly. It can't. It's not possible.
Yeah, I mean that's why like losing the title and regaining the title in the same weight class is, I think, a feat that a lot of fans don't give enough credit to.
Mm.
Like to lose the title and then regain it is so hard because once you're knocked off of that kind of mountaintop, to go, because again, everyone thinks about like, well, we talk about it, right? I think we talked about it in our first podcast about this, talking about how middleweight was so janky and how Chris Weidman probably looks at it and goes, I can't beat Gerald
Yeah.
Burkhart. I think I
We
have the
did.
skill to do it. But it's not just the skill or the ability. It's to put in a 10 or 12-week camp. It's to stay disciplined with diet. It's to avoid injury. It's to make sure that you get the right reps in. It's to make sure you game plan properly. There's so much more than just, hey, do I have probably the skill level or the technique to do this? Probably in isolation. But can I do that over 25 minutes? Can I make sure my cardio is there? Can I put in the reps for 12 weeks before even getting to the competition and not get hurt?
Yeah.
Before then. It's just so unforgiving that like to get knocked off. I mean, I still think like Izzy being knocked off by Alex Pereira and then coming back and knocking him out to reclaim the belt. How difficult that is, because Robert Whitaker lost the belt and was never able to reclaim it. Chris Weidman lost the belt, never able to reclaim it. Luke Rockhold lost the belt, never able to reclaim it.
Mhm.
Anderson Silva, like, it's so rare that people lose the belt and can get it back, because once you lose it, Max wasn't able to do it. We'll see if Alexander Volkanovski can do it, but like, it's so hard to do that shit because once somebody has passed you, to put in the effort to get past that person again, because you've been striving so much to just get to that mountaintop and hold that position, when somebody bypasses you, then do that like extra level of effort, if it's even possible, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy difficult.
Yeah. I think you bring up a really good point there of like, yeah, to recapture a championship is something that should be held in much higher accord than it currently does. And Yeah, because when you lose, like, yeah, the sport passes you by either because a new generation of hungrier, better, more skilled, faster, stronger fighters comes up, just naturally, even if you stayed the exact same, because the sport is evolving, or again, age, you're slower, you're not as dynamic, you're not as athletic, and it's just super punishing that way. In other team sports, you have people who can cover you a little bit more, pick up more, or protect you more. When you're one-on-one in a fight against someone, that's it. It's
Yeah.
all on you. And it's very unforgiving. And yeah, we are seeing, as much as I'd like to see this as like, that comeback story and this rise, and how we even talked about, like, hey, he's got one more push to become champion. That was kind of a long shot to begin with. And I think just my fanboyness probably just got in the way of that, to face the reality of this is a very unforgiving and like fast moving sport where you are hot shit. You are king of what do you call it? The
King should have fucked mountain.
Yeah, the king should have fucked mountain one day, and then
Yeah.
you're buried underneath it the next. Like
Mhm.
it is brutal for people.
Yeah. And I think what's like unique, I think as Izzy's gotten older and we've seen him over these past like 5 fights, one thing that has really been laid bare is, as much as the commentary and a lot of like in his prime, it was talking about what kind of a wizard he was and how much of a technical genius fighter he was doing a lot of things not technically correct. Like his strikes, the way, the mechanics to throwing a punch, mechanics to throwing a kick were correct. I guess like his strategic thinking, backing up on a straight line, relying extremely heavily on trunk movement, even when in the pocket, that would leave him way out of position. We could overlook that because he was so athletically dynamic, kind of like Roy Jones Jr., who would do things no boxing coach would tell you to do, but he could get away with it because he was so athletic.
Mhm.
And Izzy, still great with feints, still has fantastic technique on all of his strikes, still has a very good mind for the game, but we are beginning to see, without that extreme level of athleticism, some of these things are a lot more costly. Like if his style was in the hands of a Marvin Vittori or like, a Roman Dolidze, it just would never have functioned, right? It
Mhm.
wasn't as cerebral and grounded as we thought it was. Because that switching stance, that backing straight up, that was the exact thing that got him caught in this fight.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I don't want to say like he's washed or he's done, but I think like in a top 4, top 5 position, I think he is. I don't think he's gonna be able to compete there anymore. It does. Yeah, it passed him by, man.
Yeah.
And that might be the case. I was fanboying a little bit about like Robert Whittaker, like, well, his teeth just got knocked out against Tom's up, but it might be the next time he fights, we just kind of go like, oh no, actually that was a precursor, and whether his teeth were there or not, he just doesn't quite have it to the same level anymore. And so we
Yeah.
could still have Whittaker and Israel Adesanya knocking out, Ikram Aliskerovs and Sharabullet Magomedovs, but is that what we want to see, right? Do we want to see? I mean, as much as we would love seeing Tom Brady play fucking high school football again, do you want to see that? That's not. You want to see them doing the best that they can, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to see them. You don't want to see a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu go into a blue belt division and just start rolling around because they're
Yeah.
too old. That's not the point. So yeah, it's what do you do with Izzy? What do you do with Imavov?
Yeah, good questions. I mean, for Izzy, I don't know. I mean, I guess this is dependent on him, but if he says he wants to keep fighting, he wants to come back, I mean, maybe have him fight like Paulo Costa? Like, I don't know. Like, like what the fuck? Like who would
Holocaust
you
out here selling what PDFs on how to grow your dick size or whatever.
is he what?
He's gone full manosphere like right wing grifter.
Oh my god, no way. Come
Yeah.
on.
He is. He's got I like on a Twitter thread. It was like how to grow your penis in like 7 tips. Like, and that's I'm not. There's no hyperbole there. That's literally the name of the thread that he started. So, like, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't fight Paulo Costa. They've got history. They got beat, and that'll be entertaining. Then fuck it.
I guess it's weird because it's like all the people. I'm like, he could beat Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, probably Roman Dolidze, Paulo Costa. But do we want to see him fighting? You know, people in the top 15 and not the top 10, or people he's beaten before once or twice, and who are just as old and washed. I mean, to the level of washed that he is. Like, we're just gonna rerun those not so great fights when they happened previously. Like, ugh.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I don't
seem
know.
very good. Yeah.
Kyle Bahalia.
I see. Here's the thing: when we start talking about that, like I said, 5 rounds for Sean Strickland, 4 rounds for Dricus du Plessis, 2 rounds for Imavov. Are we gonna throw him in against Kyle Bahalia only to see him get squashed in 1 round?
Yeah.
I don't want this to be a Tony Ferguson, BJ Penn thing where we keep just throwing him in and be like, maybe he'll recapture it, and then we just watch him get crushed routinely.
I know.
Yeah, I don't, because I was gonna say like maybe it'd be fun to do like Yuri Prochazka, but I don't. That sounds like a bad plan. You know, I think share a bullet is maybe one fight for him, get a little win over the dumb pirate, and then sail off into the sunset, or just call it there, man. He's made a ton of money. He was never like poor to begin with. He was from a pretty well-to-do family in New Zealand, so. If you're comfortable, if you've got money, if you've accomplished status as either the first or second best middleweight, why keep fighting in a cage for a living? You know?
That's the thing. Izzy is one of those people who he strikes me as he has enjoyed being at the top.
Yeah.
And it'll be hard for him to take a back seat.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll probably have to do a retrospective on Izzy's career, because I think
Some
we both
point.
followed it. Yeah, and you're a big fanboy, but I think
am.
that's that might be the last fight we see of like a major consequence for Izzy. There might be a few fun fights, quote unquote, for him, but I think I don't think he's got more than 2 max left in him. Yeah. So that was weird. But we have to give props to Imavov. He came in, he was shredded. He read Izzy. Like, he threw that same combination in round 1 when Izzy made the same mistake of, from a stationary position, changing his stance without like moving while doing it, just bringing his feet together and then exchanging his stance. And Imavov threw, but Izzy leaned back out of the way. And just with a little bit more fatigue, he just wasn't able to do it. Or with a little bit more read from Imavov in the second round, Imavov was able to hit him. So props to Imavov. Like, it'll be cool to see him fight Sean Strickland or Hamzat or Dricus du Plessis. And if he has to take another fight in front of that, do we give him Robert Whittaker? Do we?
Yeah, that could be a good one.
Up to the heartbreak of Imavov destroying Whittaker and Adesanya.
That would be a brutal start of 2025.
That would hurt. But that's the way these divisions have to go, man. We have to let the old feast on the young. We got to keep making glue for the glue factory. You know what I mean? Like, we got to keep pumping these people through. It's brutal. But yeah, Imavov looked good. Izzy looked not as good. I mean, he looked good in the first round.
Yeah.
He's not the Izzy that won the title and defended it. Like, he's just a little bit slower. His tactics are just not quite as good. And I will say, like, I have a weird sneaking suspicion. Well, I don't have enough evidence or like data to back this up, but like, really good strikers that are really dynamic, that win the title, they slowly peel away their striking dynamism. They remove certain kicks, certain strikes, certain combinations until they're like ultimately pared down to like a few kicks and a jab. And I feel like Izzy really exemplified that in this fight. He was not throwing intercepting knees, elbows. He wasn't throwing unorthodox combinations. It was a jab, it was a cross, it was a round kick, and that was about it for everything in this fight.
Do you think that's a complacency thing or a literal like I can't move with the same dynamics and athleticism I used to, because like we've criticized a lot of fighters that way. I mean, Canelo is that way too.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of these dynamic strikers who become like, who are known for having incredible combination or dazzling like accuracy and things like that, as they've aged, it's like it has pared down to one or two things.
I think it's more of like a mitigating risk thing. You know, like if I only throw a jab and a cross and a round kick, there's a lot less opportunity to get countered. If I have my combinations only in 2 strikes rather than a
Mhm.
long combination. It's like I think about it like everyone complained about George St. Pierre because there's also a lot of fighters that still go in the path of I was a striker and then I picked up wrestling and then I wrestle a lot more in the back half of my title reign, like George St. Pierre. Zhang Weili's also kind of done this. Uh, Shevchenko's kind of done this. Right? We have people that do that as well, and it's
Yeah.
more. It feels like a mitigating risk being like, I don't want to get in firefights anymore. I don't want to be taking damage. And for people who don't have wrestling and they are very good strikers, like I can just pump out a jab and do nothing else and basically steal 3 out of 5 rounds
Yeah.
for most fights. I think that's kind of it. But when you do that over a long enough time, those other skills kind of atrophy overall. And then people can catch up and go, all I need to do, because his last 4 fights is it was just a 1-2 and a round kick. I don't need to worry about like his early as he was running to the title against like Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori, they were intercepting knees. He was grabbing people, hitting them with elbows off the clinch, spinning elbows. Like he was doing teep kicks into like changing stance, throwing a 3 or 4 punch combination. Like he was extremely dynamic. It could be a little bit aged, but I think he also got to the title reign and was like, I can also just beat these guys just with a jab and a cross. It's a lot less taxing. I have less chance of getting countered. I can really control the fight just with those 2 skills, and so I'm just going to use those.
Mhm.
That's what I think. Like,
That's fair.
yeah. So I think this is the last we see of like elite Izzy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we gotta. I don't know who's our. That's the weird thing is like who's the next person you're excited for at middleweight. Because as much as we joke about Dricus du Plessis, it's really hard to be actually excited for his fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're excited in like an ironic way, you know?
It's not even ironic. It's more like there's difference between excited about like a Lamborghini and being excited that like a Toyota Corolla exploded in the parking lot. You're like, whoa, look at that shit, right? Like you're not actually excited about the car. It's more of like the fact that it exploded.
No, you're more excited about the fact that it might explode. Like it's
Yeah.
got this like
That's
twin
right.
turbo nitrous engine now. It's like there's a 90% chance it'll explode, but for some reason it keeps winning races. And you're like, well shit, like I like this. It's
Yeah.
winning, it's jank as fuck. But
Yeah.
one day, like maybe it will implode and holy shit, you know, like
Oh, and it definitely will. And its decline will be much more precipitous than Izzy's.
It's yeah.
Yeah, when the wheels come off, everything comes off. It's just gonna be axles sitting in the dirt. It's gonna be fucking nothing. But we'll talk more about the middleweight division on Friday because we've got a middleweight title fight coming up. We have an Apex card with middleweight contenders. Middleweight's in a really weird place. I think kind of that old generation of Izzy, Robert Whitaker, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Paulo Costa. They're all going away.
Yeah.
So now it's time for the turnover, and the new generation at middleweight is
what the fuck?
Yeah, it's weird. Anyway, but let's talk about the rest of this card. We were all sad and whatever for Izzy. We talked about him and his silliness. Let's talk about 2 terrible fights: Shara Bullet Magomedov and MVP. Collin, you thought Shara Bullet would win this fight, and yet I told you MVP is going to be able to skate around and not get hit too much and probably win this fight, and that's what happened. So tell me, why were you wrong and I was so right?
Dude, this fight fucking sucked. Like
Yeah.
So first of all, okay. I was working Saturday afternoon because the time changed and everything. Like I didn't get to see them live. So I already knew what happened because you and I had talked about it and we texted back and forth. So I was like already prepared for it to kind of be like, all right, this is kind of like how we expected it, kind of being like this weird, like what Terrible would only throw leg kicks. Like I think that's what you
Yeah.
texted me. He like only threw leg kicks, and Michael Van Page was able to like it basically just win on points essentially,
Mhm.
And this is kind of I was prepared for it to be like a really tepid, point fighting taekwondo karate esque match. And
Mhm.
while it was essentially that, it was like worse somehow. Like for all the hoopla and all the hype surrounding Sharabullet Magomedov, it was like, and now we see the jank show up. Like, I don't know. It was like, and people I was reading online, people were still like, oh, it's because he was sick, or all be like, he'll come back. It's like, no, this is how he fights. This is how he's
Yeah.
always fought. Like, and while the first time I saw him, I was like, oh, cool, he threw more than one kick at a time. I like that. Then I realized, like, oh, like that's all he can do, and that none of them are really that damaging, as demonstrated when he fought here. So, like, yeah, it was definitely one of those where I was like, I was watching for a while. I was like, okay, look at my other monitor. I'll just check back every now and then. Like, this is
Yeah.
this was fucking. I didn't need to see it.
Yeah, I had seen somebody describe Sharabullet as fighting as in like basically he has, let's say, like a 4-foot radius around him. Let's imagine that that's a red circle, and then
Okay.
within that red circle, on a 2-foot radius, is a yellow circle.
Okay.
He has no way of getting closer to you, but the second you enter that red part of the circle, he'll throw a kick. But if you can be on the outside of that red part of the circle or close in on that yellow part of the circle, he doesn't know what to do. And he has
Mm.
no way to close the distance to get you into that red point. So he just kind of stands there waiting for you to run through this like danger zone before he throws a kick. But if you never enter that danger zone or you blitz so quickly through the red part of that circle that you enter the yellow, he doesn't know what to do. He's
Mm.
just like, this is just all I can do. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what this fight was like. It was just, it showed he has no ideas about closing distance. He has no ideas if it's not exactly at kicking range, what to do. And if you are either too far outside of kicking range or too close inside where he needs to be punching, he has no idea about like, how do I reestablish the range I want? He just goes, I don't know. I'll try to figure
Yeah.
this out. Yeah, Sharabullet sucks. MVP, not so good either. Both of them should be punished by fighting wrestlers from their respective divisions because, yeah, fuck this fight. But I was right. I mean, I was so surprised MVP was an underdog here because I was like, there's so much hype around Sharabullet, and there's no reason for there to be any hype. He sucks, and MVP is a little bit faster and a little bit more dynamic than him, so he'll win. You should have listened to my advice, bet a little money on him because you would have won. I think it was a 2-1 favorite, so you would have doubled your money.
Yeah.
You'd bet an MVP. Yeah. Let's talk about this heavyweight fight. Collin,
Jesus Christ.
I mean this earnestly. Should we cut the heavyweight division in the UFC? Because name 3 fighters that are interesting to watch in this division.
Tom Aspinall.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah. Just because I got a soft spot for the smaller boys, Jelton Almeida, I guess.
Okay, I mean he laid and preyed on Derek Lewis for 5 rounds and couldn't finish him, but I'll
Yeah.
give you that freebie. So now you got to come correct with this third one.
Oh yeah, I can't. I was searching Alex Pereira.
Yeah, I mean, not even a heavyweight. Never fought there before. So we have 2 people. Basically, we have 1 person. Maybe
With
John
one person
Jones.
and 2 light heavyweights.
Yeah, maybe John Jones just for the name of it. And like, I think this division's cooked. I think we should cut it, man. We don't need this division. What's
They
it
will
doing for
never
us?
ever cut
No,
the heavyweight division.
but they should because there's nothing going on here.
Yeah.
There are 3 interesting heavyweights in the world in MMA, and one of them is Francis Ngannou, and they will never re-sign him.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're doing here, man. Right? Like John Jones is interesting just because he's John Jones, but at any moment he can retire, and he has got so much fuckery going on that you kind of just want to go, I want to just delete him off the roster. So then you just have Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou in opposing organizations. There's no point for this heavyweight division to exist.
Mm.
Yeah, again, you didn't get the call. You were like, there's going to be a finish in this one. I told you
I
it was going
know.
to be a real stinker. And this was certifiably stinker of the night. This
Yeah.
fight fucking sucked.
Dude, I think also Rosenstruck was cut on Monday or today.
Really?
I think so.
Ooh, well, I mean, I guess that's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Like, because, yeah, like, okay. Shamil Gaziev, who lost to Rosenstruck and retired on the stool because he was too tired, is number 14. We've got Tai Tuivasa, who's not good. Derek Lewis, who's not good. Jairzinho Rosenstruck, who's cut. Marcin Tybura, who sucks. Sergey Spivak, who sucks. Stilton Almeida, okay, funny little meme guy, haha. Curtis Blades, a decent heavyweight fighter, but like not a top 15, maybe a number 15 fighter in any other division. Sergey Pavlovich, who sucks. We've got Volkov, gone, and Aspinall. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Let's just cut it. Let's cut it, guys. We don't need it. Or if we really are adamant about doing this, I think we just need to have the Alex Pereira sweepstakes, and we just go, if you're a top 5 heavyweight, you have to fight Alex Pereira. And if you lose, we immediately cut you. And we just let Alex Pereira lay waste to the heavyweight division. We just let him knock them out one by one by one by one. This division sucks, and I hate it. All right. Well, that was the UFC card. It was bad. It was pretty bad, huh, Collin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch any other fights?
Nope.
Yep. No need. No need. It was bad. It's bad overall. But the thing that was good this weekend, the thing that was so fucking good, Collin, was boxing.
Yeah.
Tell me, let's start from the top. Benevidez versus Morell. What did you think of this fight?
Oh, the top. What? The
Yeah.
last fight of the night.
The very top.
Yeah. Okay. So when we first talked about this, I thought it was like going to be like I guess I thought it was supposed to be like really close. Like I thought they were supposed to be I think you said the odds were almost even, right? On this one? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Watching the first 8 rounds or 7 rounds of the fight?
Yeah.
It wasn't that way. It seemed
Yeah.
like just very outclassed, very one-sided, and just I mean, Benavidez was just better at everything. And I was like, damn, like he's like, and he is like just picking his shots and just he made it look like extremely one-sided. And then out of fucking nowhere, Morell dropped Benavidez.
Yeah.
In the 11th round. So
a little bit more of a push, but yeah, it counted as a drop. Yeah.
You know, but and he like got a little bit from that, but I mean, that's the thing. Like boxing seems to have like, even when they are one-sided, more drama within them. And whether it's because there are more rounds, so there's more opportunity to make adjustments, and they're shorter, so it's like easier, I guess you could say, to like make adjustments, or like your adjustments have a more impact to take around from someone, or they have to make like because a lot of these fights that we watch have had some level of drama in them, whereas a lot of the MMA fights we've watched haven't, you know. And so yeah, I mean, it was very entertaining, and you know, even though it was, again, I didn't know much about these guys before. You know, I think I saw one of Benavidez's fights before this, but you know, the odds being fairly similar, I expected Morell to be like more evenly matched and for it to be more back and forth, especially with all the trash talking that you said they had, like fuck your dog, fuck your cat, like
yeah,
you know. But it was like, damn, like Benavidez, he showed what's what, and he kept his undefeated record, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, it was impressive. It is this thing of like, I mean, I will say in most of Benavidez's fights, like I said, he's got an 80% knockout rate or finish rate in his fights. Like when he started moving downhill on Morell routinely in this fight, but Morell always would battle back. He would always land a hard punch. He would always keep himself in the fight. maybe not taking the round or clinching a round, but definitely, you would see Benavidez get him in a corner. Those uppercuts leading into combinations were phenomenal. Benavidez is so weird because he'll square up on you, right? He'll just be entirely square in front of you, throwing with both hands. And Morell would be eating it, and I'd be like, okay, this is where he's gonna fall. Okay, this is where he's gonna like start crumpling. Okay, this is where he's gonna give up. And he would fire back and crack Benavidez. And I'd be like, oh shit, he's still in this fight. And he took it all 12 rounds because there were so many instances where I thought, okay, this is where Benavidez typically moves downhill on every opponent and gets them out of there. And Morell was in there, man. He was in there and he kept throwing back. And like you said, he knocked, even though it wasn't like a full knockdown, he did knock down Benavidez in the back half of the fight, and he was landing hard ass punches every single round. So yeah, it wasn't like a exactly tit for tat. Benavidez was mostly in control of the fight, but it was a gunfight, and I was like, this is awesome. That's what I want. This is cool. Yeah, I think probably when boxing is at its best, it's better than MMA, right? Like, there's more drama, like you said, in a fight. There's just more time, since there's less likely to be like one flash knockdown and then somebody follows up quickly on the ground. It just allows for a narrative to develop over time more, and allows for more nuances in the narrative.
A narrative, that's a great way to describe, like, an actual narrative
Yeah.
within the fight.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought this was stellar. This was, and like, Benavidez is gonna fight Bivol or Beterbiev after this, and like Beterbiev is gonna meet Benavidez head on, and like Bivol is really hard to corner, and Benavidez again squares up on you and just walks at you in a straight line. His footwork is not the best, so it's like, what a weird style matchup. Either way, either this thunderous puncher in Beterbiev or this like absolute slickster in Bivol. But yeah, I thought a phenomenal fight.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome shit. One thing I will say is 2 times at heavyweight, or at light heavyweight, no finishes and no knockdowns for Benavidez. I think that power isn't quite carrying at the elite level.
Do you think that's going to pose some trouble when he does fight the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol, who are knockout artists at that weight?
Absolutely. Well, because also, like, you can't, if his hope is to either slow down the footwork of Bivol or stop the freight train of Beterbiev, you got to be able to sit them down and make them respect your power. Like, you can't, you have to be able to do that. You have to have that threat in your back pocket. And if you don't, like, what do you, especially with Beterbiev, like, what the fuck are you going to do? What are you going to do against that guy? Yeah, so I think that's definitely an issue that'll probably come up. But, I mean, Morell, an absolute gangster and, like, a really tough guy to put away. And the dude's got a chin. He was getting cracked. Like, it was in round 4, round 5, when Benavidez really started lacing him up with the uppercuts, and his whole head is snapping back. I was like, dude, this guy is still standing. And he would get his head snapped back and then throw back immediately. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Great fight. I loved it. I was like, this is good boxing. I love it.
Yeah.
Fulton Jr. Versus, was it
Brandon Figueroa? Yeah.
What'd you think about this fight?
So this one was the one that you said they fought 2 or 3 years ago, right? And it was like a candidate for fight of the year.
Yes.
So there was a lot of hype on this one. And admittedly, I didn't see the one before. These were the only 2 fights that I ended up being able to see. So I was like, okay, I made it to this one, hopefully, like, because I didn't watch that other fight. And gotta say, the actual fight itself, I was a little disappointed with. I'd like to, and based on what I've read, it's very much underwhelming, especially given their first fight together. So whether that's, I understand Fulton has a, like, new trainer, so maybe it's like the new training style or the fact that it's been a few years now or what, but I don't know. But the thing that I was most entertained about in this fight, Fulton's fucking fit coming into this. What the hell was wearing? Like, for those of you who didn't see the fight, it looked like he was wearing straight up like his boxing shorts looked like they were jean jorts and fucking Timberlands. Like,
yeah, man.
Like,
oh, dude,
man knows how to dress for a fight. I will say that.
Yeah.
And that's also what makes boxing awesome is you can have some of these things come in. I was like, you know what? I like that. You know, this at least every time when I'm watching this fight, I'm entertained by what you're wearing. And that shit was great.
And those his box. So like both of them, right? The Timberlands for his boxing shoes and his boxing shorts, which look like cut off jean shorts, were not actually made from denim and were not actually Timberlands. They were custom made to look and replicate jean shorts and Timberlands. And I'm like, dude, that's like in this era of MMA where everyone just has the same fucking like Spanx or like, you know, basic board shorts from Reebok. Knowing that in boxing, you get your own seamstress and go like, I want my shorts to look like they're made of denim. And they're like, can I make it out of denim? No, I'm going to be boxing for 36 minutes. I'm not wearing denim. What should your shoes look like? Typical boxing shoes? No, make them look like Timberlands. Well, those aren't legal. Make them look as close to Timberlands as possible. I'm like, that's the coolest shit ever, man. Like that is part of what's like awesome about boxing is, dude, the level of absurd, dumb pageantry that goes into this shit is so great. It's so great. It's like when what was his name? Was it the last Tank Davis fight when he fought Ghost Martin?
Yeah, and he came out to Ghostbusters.
Yes. Oh yeah, yes. Tank Davis did, but Martin wore it looked like crocheted shoes and shorts. Like his shorts made look like they were like crocheted wool. And his like shoes look like they were crocheted like almost like mittens for your feet. And I'm like, this shit is goofy and I love it. This is so cool. This is what I want out of boxing. Listen, everyone, this is what they took from you in MMA. We used to be allowed to have absurd shorts, condom deep on the back. Dennis Hallman coming in a tiny Speedo, his balls nearly falling out mid-fight. Like, Alan Belcher loved to do the kind of like classic boxer where it's almost like, you know, you've got like 8 or 9 strips of fabric rather than actual shorts in like a weird skirt thing. Yeah, we used to have insane shorts. George St. Pierre, every time he lost, he would change the style of short that he wore. So it like showed you like, oh, he's like renewing what his deal is. We could have that in MMA. And yet we don't. And it's really upsetting.
It really feels like for MMA, they're trying to be like a legitimate real sport. And I've never gotten past the whole like, you're a sideshow. You know, you're a circus act, so they're like trying to pretend that they are something more upstanding than they are. Whereas boxing is just kind of embrace the like, yeah, you guys are kind of savages. Just like do what you want. Like,
yeah. Well, and here's the weird thing: boxing. I mean, we do have some degenerates in boxing, obviously. Like Ryan Garcia says heinous shit. The UFC had 2 stars recently: Conor McGregor using the N-word to describe Khabib Nurmagomedov. And then Bryce Mitchell coming out and saying that Hitler wasn't a bad guy and that the Jews were responsible for the Holocaust.
Jesus.
So, like, this whole thing about, like, we're going to be a mainstream sport, and Bryce Mitchell saying the most heinous, bullshit, ass backwards nonsense ever, and then Conor McGregor using an extremely offensive slur that he has no context for how bad it is, and then applying it to a Muslim fighter that he fought. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, you fully understand that you're an absolute sideshow, like, trash bin of a sport. And yet you're like, I want to exercise control of the fighters and not let them have fun with their shorts. What's going on here? What's going on here, UFC? This is nuts. Yeah. I do recommend.
We just talked a lot about their attire and not the fight. So I think that tells you everything we need to know. But
I mean, it was an okay fight. It was like Fulton was coming off the terrible knockout to Inoue, so the fact that he came back and won this fight, impressive. I thought. I thought it was a good fight, right? It's not fight of the year, but it was better than anything the UFC put on. So I'm like, this is a good fight. It was entertaining overall. It's a good fight.
Uh, did you say he lost to Inoue?
Yeah, Fulton got knocked out brutally by Inoue.
Oh, yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, right before this fight. So, or not right. I mean, not like the day before, but like his
Yeah,
previous fight was that. But yeah, so coming back and winning, good to see. And then you didn't watch Isak Cruz versus Fierro.
No, and you told me that this is candidate for fight of the year. So
Absolutely, this is insane, especially because kind of like the Benevidez Morell fight, where every time I'm like, okay, well, this is Morell. This is when Morell's gonna die. This is when Benevidez is gonna kill Morell. A lot of the time, Benevidez wouldn't like fully turn on the gas. In the Isak Cruz Fierro fight, Isak Cruz would be landing, spinning Fierro's chin around, and Fierro would be still standing there. And I'd go, okay, well, this is where he gets finished. And then Cruz would hit him with like 6 or 8 more punches, and he'd still be standing there. I'm like, okay, well, now he's going to die. His internal organs are going to explode. And then Isak Cruz would land like 8 or 9 more punches, and Fierro would still be there throwing back. And I was like, how the fuck is this guy still alive? And then he would crack Cruz really hard across the chin, and Cruz would back off. And I go, oh my God, this is where Cruz is going to fall. And then Fierro would follow up and hit him a few more times, and he would not fall. And that just happened all 12 rounds. These dudes definitely took, a decade off of each other's lives? It was insane. It was the most Mexican-style boxing fight I've ever seen. They just stood there and took pieces out of each other.
I'm watching the highlight of this first round, and it is 15 seconds in, and both of them have already landed like 3 power shots to each other. I was like,
oh yeah,
wait, what the fuck? This is not how boxing fights start. There's like a feeling out process. There's like establish the range. They just said, fuck all that, and we're just gonna swing and bang.
And they just kept that up for 12 rounds, man.
God damn.
It's a phenomenal fight. They just took chunks out of each other. And I guess like it's a little bit of a spoiler because you haven't seen it, so you know that they survive. But the entire time I'm watching it, I'm like, you get that feeling, when you're like, okay, we're 5 to 10 seconds away from a finish. It just was that all 36 minutes of this fight. I'm like, oh shit, it's about to happen. Oh shit, it's about to happen. Oh shit, and it never came. So the whole time you're just like, when is one of you gonna finally die? And neither one of them did.
Did anyone score a knockdown at all?
I think Isak Cruz did in 1 round.
Okay.
But yeah, because they just got beat the Jesus out of each other.
And they didn't. There's no time where they just basically just hung on to each other and just to because they're so physically exhausted.
Yeah, so the pace does kind of lower, definitely, but there is not a lot of punch and clutch or really hanging or anything where you go, hey, round 5 they each landed 30 punches, round 6 they only threw 5 each. Yeah. They keep a pretty high pace the whole way through. It's pretty stellar.
Because that 30 seconds in round 1, there was no light set. They were just winging punches they were just going for a 1 punch knockout on each one, whether it was to the body or to the head. And I was like 30 seconds of doing that, just hitting as hard as you can on another body while getting hit, that's taxing, you are putting everything you got into a strike while getting a strike. That's double the energy output there for people who don't fight. If you ever get into just swinging shots, I know because I told you this after my fight this last year. My first fight, I somehow got pulled into that, and normally I'm a little bit more reserved and I'll be smart with my fight. But for 1 round, I was just fuck it. I just swaying like a fucking donkey brain idiot, and that's not my style at all. And I was like, I'm so tired right now. What the fuck did I just do? Why did I do this? I have a whole I gotta do for this.
Yeah, man. No, it is for anyone who hasn't fought, and this, right? Getting hit is so fucking tiring. And
so if you're tiring,
so imagine doing 30 seconds hard on a heavy bag. That's pretty tiring. But if you're the heavy bag also for the same 30 seconds, it's crazy. It's not just doubly tiring, it's 4x tiring.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And they do that shit for 36 minutes, man. It's
That's
glorious.
wild. Like,
It's so good. It's
yeah,
so good.
props to them. So,
Yeah.
all right, how? Yeah, I'll have to watch the whole thing now.
Yeah, it's an amazing fight. It's definitely worth it. So yeah, there were good fights this weekend. Benevidez,
Yeah.
the Fulton one not as good, but the Benevidez Morell was really great. You saw Cruz and Fierro, phenomenal. Like this is, dude, boxing when it's at its best, there's not quite anything like it. And MMA when it's at its best is really good, but when it's at its worst, God, it's some of the worst shit you could watch. It's more
Yeah.
boring than golf. It's really fucking boring, man. Yeah, and Sergey Pavlovich, God bless you. You should also be cut. Yeah.
I got one news for you here.
Oh, all right, lay it on me.
My boy Inoue, he's coming to the States, baby.
Oh yeah,
On
Who's he
June
fighting?
14th. He is fighting against Alan Romero at T-Mobile Arena.
Ooh, okay.
So
14th.
yeah, I might need to see that live.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know much about who is this? Picasso
Yeah, Alan Picasso Romero.
coming off a knockout in the third round of. Okay, he's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Like, I'd love to see Inoue fight someone a little bit more renowned, but you know what?
Right.
Cool.
But he's coming to the
cool see.
States. Coming to
Yeah.
the States.
Cool to see that. Yeah. Nah, fuck it. I want him versus Loma. Fuck all those noise.
Oh my god, that's the dream. But hey, he has to fight. He has 2 more fights planned for this year. One more in Japan and then one in Riyadh. So
I hope whatever the one is for Riyadh, they get somebody worthwhile. For
yeah.
him. Yeah. Because he's being such a little guy, he's gonna age out quickly, right? We talked about Izzy, and he's a bigger dude, and he aged out at 35. And always what 32? We gotta get.
I think he's older than that.
Is he? No, don't say it so.
Let me
Okay,
see.
whatever. He's in his early 30s. It's bad news.
Oh no, he's 31. He's 31. My bad.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, yeah, I'm excited for that, man. No,
Yeah.
And later this month we have Better Even Bivol 2. Like this is good as well. Tank Davis is gonna fight this first quarter. So it's all boxing's good, man. Boxing's good. I am a little worried because it's like so much of it has been taken over by Riyadh and Saudi Arabia that like the second Saudi Arabia decides to get out of the boxing game, which I assume will probably happen in the next few years, what's going to happen to boxing? Because there's no infrastructure really anymore outside of Riyadh season and boxing or in Saudi Arabia for boxing. So we might be lean times post whatever Saudi Arabia does with boxing. Yeah, but enjoy it while it lasts, right?
For sure. Yeah. Eat while it's going good right now. So
yeah, makes sense. It's yeah, a little bummed out. All right. Well, this has been 2-5 Fans Podcast. I'm 1-5 Fan Store.
I'm the other Collin.
And join us on Friday. We're gonna preview, I guess.
We gotta make picks, man.
No, what are we gonna make picks on for this one, Collin? There's nothing to make picks on. Fuck that.
We made picks for this last boxing or this last MMA card, and this one at least has 2 championship fights.
3 fights. Yeah, okay, so we can make picks on these 2 championships. Here's what I recommend.
Listen, I'm down in points right now. I gotta start making it up.
I say we make picks on both UFC 312 and the following Apex fight night. Because there's only 3 fights of interest between those 2.
Okay. All right, I could take that. Yeah.
I say we do the middleweight title fight against Duplessis and Sean Strickland, Zhang Guilei, Tatiana Suarez, in the Apex card following that. Because we're not gonna like do an extra preview for this fucking Apex card. I'm probably not even gonna watch this Apex card. But it's got Hobo Cop versus Jared Cannonier.
Oh, okay.
And it's got Calvin Kattar versus Yusuf Salal. These are 4 interesting fights, kind of, to 3.5 interesting fights. We'll make picks for those.
All
And
right.
then we will not talk about that Apex card ever again.
Yeah.
And because there's more interesting stuff. We have to do a Dominic Cruz retrospective this month. We have to do a Better Be Ball 2 preview, and we have to do UFC Seattle preview.
All right.
We're entering one of the worst pay-per-views I've seen on paper in a long time. And then an Apex card, which I told you in 2024, I'm not watching Apex cards anymore, buddy. It's just not going to happen. Here's the thing.
We can watch those two fights. We can watch those
last
two.
Time. Yeah. Like this main card for UFC 312, they don't have a middleweight fight on the main card other than the title fight, which means if one of them gets injured or misses weight, you lose one of the two interesting fights on this card.
Yeah.
Why did they not put Hobo Cop and Jared Cannonier on this main card and Calvin Kattar and Yusuf Salal? We don't need Justin Taffa and Callison Teixeira and Jimmy Crute and Jake Matthews and Francisco Prado. Who gives a shit about them? Who gives a shit? Yeah. Anyway, so join us on Friday. We're going to preview two cards at once, actually just the co-main and main of both of those cards, and then probably never talk about them again. But we will probably have to talk about the state of this middleweight division now that Imavov has won, Izzy has lost, Robert Whittaker lost all of his teeth. Middleweight went from a fun, guilty pleasure to like actually full-blown alcoholism, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a fun little drink you have on the weekends. It's we're having shots at 9 a.m. It's a bad time. It's a bad time overall. All right, everybody. Catch you on Friday.
Bye-bye.